Okay, so I just wanted to do a video on burning ranges for the Sega Saturn. I wanted to do this video quite a while ago because I completed the game quite a while ago, but I've only just now getting around to doing the video on it. Um, yeah, basically it's quite a significant game as far as the Sega Saturn goes. It came out really late in the Saturn's life. It came out in 1998. Yeah, so by that time Sega was winding down on the Saturn and was getting ready to release the Dreamcast, and Bernie Stoller didn't help things with the Saturn, with his infamous kind of little speech there at E3, that where he basically said the Saturn isn't Sega's future. Well, that's another story, but yeah. So a few significant things about Burning Ranges is one, graphically it is really really nice. When you play the game, you can tell that it's got really, for the Saturn at least, really really high res textures. It does look like a really futuristic game. It's got these kind of neon, kind of futuristic neon looking bright colours. And like I said, the textures in there are really top notch. Some of the best textures on the Saturn. Another significant thing about Burning Ranges is that it was quite a significant game to do transparency. Now, a lot of people think that the Saturn can't do transparency, but it can. It had hardware support for 2D transparency via its VDP processors. So it could do 2D rendered transparent, stuff. But when it comes to 3D transparency, so if you was doing a 3D game and you wanted 3D objects to be transparent, then it had to be software coded into the game because it had no hardware support for 3D transparencies. Now, that doesn't mean that the system couldn't do transparency. It could, it just had to be in the 3D game for 3D objects. It had to be software coded into the game. Now, because the system was harder to program for and it took longer to program games because it was more difficult, a lot of developers just decided not to go down the whole transparent route, and not obviously, but they decided to use either they decided to use Diverin, which is like the wire mesh that simulates transparency, or is supposed to, or they just used it fully shaded polys really. So yeah, that's why you don't see a lot of transparency in full force in a lot of Sega Saturn games. But what I would say is you would be really surprised just to see how much transparency there are in a lot of 3D games. The problem is it's used a bit here, a bit there. Sometimes it's used, Diverin is used more than transparency. So you have loads of Diverin and then you'll have like a little bit of transparency. It's never used in full force. Now, what's significant about Burning Ranges is that transparency was used full force and it was used from start to finish. So every second of that game, you're witnessing transparent, effects. And I mean literally every second, all the way through the game, you're just witnessing loads and loads and loads of transparent effects. Now, the in the game, fire is used a lot in the game. It's pretty much used everywhere, and the transparent, the fire effects are transparent, but a lot of other effects are transparent as well in there. You've got water that's transparent, some glass. You've got where glass is used, that's transparent as well, and sometimes you've got a combination of all three in on the go at the same time in there, and that's pretty amazing. The frame rate does take a bit of a drop when all that's going on, but it's still pretty good. Like I said, the significance of the transparency is not in that it was used, because a lot of games did use transparency, to varying degrees. It's that it was used so much all the way throughout the game, basically. And no other games really did that on the Saturn. Like I said, they used them bits here and there, but not like to such a degree throughout the whole game. Now the game is about fighting fires. You're in this kind of futuristic world, and everything's got, there's all these disasters going on, and you're part of an elite firefighting team, obviously called the Burning Rangers, and you go to all these disasters and you fight fires. Now this game isn't really an action adventure. It's more of like it's kind of like an action adventure platformer. It's more of a platformer than it is an adventure game. So I'd say it's leaning more towards, it's more like a 3D platforming action game with adventure elements. It is pretty enjoyable. There's you're going through, you're fighting all these fires, you're putting them out. It's kind of got this thing where, the same as in Sonic the Hedgehog, whereas you have to collect all these emeralds, and the emeralds act as like a barrier between life and death. Whereas if you hit something and you lose all your emeralds, and then you don't, if you're left with no emeralds, and then you get hit by the fire again, you'll die. But if you have loads of emeralds, they'll spill out and you can collect them all up again. So it's basically like Sonic the Hedgehog, and the game was made by Sonic Team, so they kind of really reused that feature, shall I say. It doesn't really work as a 3D platformer though, to be honest with you. The controls are really awkward, and it's best that you play the game with the 3D analog pad, because playing it with the normal Mark 1 and 2 control pad is, with the D-pad, is just bloody awkward. But yeah, the 3D platform doesn't really work. The levels are quite some of them are just quite dull, to be honest with you. The boss fights, because you get a boss fight at the end of all the levels. Now the boss fights are the highlights of those, the levels. And they are good, pretty good. They're really interesting, but they're so damn easy on most of them. Bar the final boss at the end of the game. All I did was stand there and keep charging up my blaster and firing my blaster at what I was supposed to be aiming at, and just to kill the boss. And that pretty much got me through all the boss fights. There was one boss fight, I think it's level 2, where you had to fight this fish that was swimming around in the water, and the water was transparent and the fish was transparent. And yeah, I had to jump about a bit on that, but by and large, apart from that and the very last boss, all the others I just stood there and blasted away. I didn't have to move, didn't have to do nothing, so they're pretty damn easy. To be quite honest with you, I know everyone kind of puts this game on a bit of a makes this game out to be one of the best, but to be honest, I think it's pretty average, to be honest with you. That's my honest opinion. I mean, this game can go for a lot of money. It goes for like 40 quid all day long, but I honestly don't think it's worth 40 quid. A lot of people have said, well, it's just that you don't get the game. Well, I do get the game, but it's just not that great, to be honest with you. It just as it's just too flawed in too many areas. Like I said, the controls are bad. The camera angle is just atrocious. It is really bad, and it just makes for a really frustrating experience. The only good part of the game is the very, very last level, and that pretty much shows off what the game could do or could have been. And even then, it's got this really frustrating bit right in the middle of it. But it is the best level of the game. The game is also one that's meant to be played over and over and over again. And the more you play it, the more the levels unlock. You unlock different areas. You can go through different routes that were closed on your first playthrough. There's more people to rescue, more areas to go to and whatnot. But the thing is, once you played this game, you realise how frustrating it is, and realise that, to be honest with you, it doesn't live up to the hype that's surrounded it over the years. You don't want to go back to it, and yeah, that's why I say it's not really the big super game that people make it out to be. To be honest, I think I would say it's a game that you wouldn't want to spend in hindsight, you wouldn't want to spend more than, I don't know, about 10 quid on, really. 40 quid, I don't feel it's a 40 quid game, but that's what it goes for. That's what I paid for it. Yeah, so one thing I haven't mentioned is the graphical glitches, the graphical pop-in and graphical clip-in that goes on throughout the game. It happens constantly throughout the whole entire game. It really does, and it's constantly going on. Even when you're standing still, you see clip-in and graphical glitches. It's just non-stop, and it really does spoil the game. And yeah, for that, to me, it just ain't the game that everyone makes it out to be.